Okay, so our treatment of the infamous cranial nerves will begin now. You're going to need to know all 12 of these. We'll have a good summary for the review for you on these 12 cranial nerves and what exactly you need to know. You'll also need to know it for the lab work as well, so don't ignore this material. It's very important. And we begin with the first cranial nerve called the olfactory nerve. It's the only nerve, the only cranial nerve that is actually outside the skull. And you can see that these nerves project into the nasal cavity, and this is responsible for detection of smells, otherwise called as olfaction. You have the olfactory bulb, and then the axon tract that goes back to the brain. So the nerves themselves, the detectors, are found out in the periphery, not inside the central nervous system or inside the brain or even inside the body, out in the nasal cavity. All right, so if you have a damage to these, it just gives you an impaired sense of smell. We have the olfactory bulbs that are located through the crista galli of the ethmoid bone, and remember the olfactory nerves project through what's called the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone. The tracts then are the axons of the postsynaptic neurons coming out of the olfactory bulbs, and they go to the cerebrum. So here we see the little hair-like brush sticking off. That's actually the axons, the dendrites and neurons, and the nerve is there, its synapses here, and then projects back to the smell cortex. All right, so we see the olfactory nerve, olfactory bulb, cranial nerve 1, just another picture of it. So if this helps you with understanding its position, terminology, then great, go for it. Okay, the second major cranial nerve is the optic nerve, cranial nerve number 2. It begins as we exit from the eyeballs. The optic nerve is the collection of the axons from the eyeball, and what we'll see is that these nerves, some of them will decussate or cross over here in a region called the optic chiasm, and then we'll begin the respective optic tracts. We'll talk more about how this information is split up in the optic chiasm in chapter 16. So obviously if you have damage here, you can have blindness in various parts of your visual field. All right, so again, just definitions of those two structures that we just discussed. And more anatomical localization for you for each of these figures. So I provide all these slides so you can get plenty of data on exactly where they're located and positioned in the body. Okay. And we begin to see how some fibers, here we have this one from the right eye painted in green, this one crosses over and joins this one on this side of the left eye, and they cross over. On the other hand, this one on this side of the left eye joins this one on this side of the right eye. And again, hopefully we'll make more sense of it when we get to chapter 16. The third nerve is the oculomotor nerve. Now for each of these cranial nerves, you'll need to know a little bit about their function. You'll need to know the cranial nerve number. You'll need to know the cranial nerve name. And then you'll need to know what they affect, where they go to, what they target. And so the oculomotor nerve is a motor nerve. The first one we covered was a sensory nerve only. That's the olfactory nerve. And the second one, the optic nerve, is a sensory nerve only. And so we'll look at this oculomotor nerve, which is a motor nerve only. And it helps with turning the eyeball and moving the eyeball. So it actually attaches to distinct muscles on the eyeball. Now we haven't learned these muscles yet, but we're just on the verge of doing it. So here we go. So the oculomotor nerve activates 4 of the 6 muscles that move the eyeball. The 4 that it activates are the superior, medial, and inferior rectus muscles, and then the inferior oblique muscle. It also controls muscles of the iris and lens. So let's look at these in detail, and you can see these different rectus muscles. These are the ones that go straight forward. So let's go back and cover those muscles that were attached here. We have on this side, we have the medial rectus. Here we have the inferior rectus. Here we have the superior rectus, and right here it's been cut away as the lateral rectus. That is not part of this. Only the ones that are shown are part of it, and the inferior oblique that we see right down through here. Okay. Now, for the trochlear nerve, its sole responsibility is the superior oblique muscle. And you can see it attaching to the superior oblique that kind of hooks around this little muscle that's behind this bar right here and curves back around, and that helps rotate the eyeball. So if you have damage here, you wouldn't be able to rotate it very well, and you may have double vision. So this is a very tiny nerve, trochlear nerve, cranial nerve 4. The abducens nerve, cranial nerve 6, attaches only to that one that was cut away in the previous picture called the lateral rectus. So let's cover it again. Oculomotor, cranial nerve 3, attaches to the inferior, superior, and medial rectus muscles, and to the inferior oblique muscle that helps rotate the eyeball. The trochlear nerve, cranial nerve 4, attaches to the superior oblique, and then cranial nerve 6, the abducens muscle, attaches to the lateral rectus to help move the eye laterally. And we see its projection in this picture. Okay, a summary of those three muscles together. I think this really helps in showing the different muscles that are attached by each of the three cranial nerves shown here.